Ambassador Minute-Ho Kim walked through the massive crystal corridors of the Galactic Council station. The walls sparkled like diamonds around him, reflecting the light from distant stars. His black uniform looked simple compared to the grand architecture surrounding him. Behind him, Dr. Jiwoo Park carried a briefcase filled with data tablets that contained everything about Earth's progress. They had traveled for months to reach this place. The station floated in space near the center of the galaxy, where 12 powerful alien races met to decide the fate of thousands of worlds. Minute-Ho had practiced his speech hundreds of times. Today would determine if humanity could join the galactic community or remain alone in the darkness of space. The council chamber was enormous. 12 different sections surrounded a central platform where Minute-Ho would make his presentation. Each section housed a different alien species, and each species controlled vast portions of the galaxy. The Zephyrians sat in chairs made of living crystal that grew and shifted as they moved. The HFY hung from the ceiling in web-like structures, their insect bodies clicking and chittering. The Luxari had no physical form at all, they were pure energy that danced in contained fields of light. Minute-Ho stepped onto the central platform. His heart was beating fast, but his hands remained steady. This was the moment humanity had worked toward for decades. Ever since they had developed faster-than-light travel, they had dreamed of joining the greater galactic civilization. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Minute-Ho began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. I come before you as ambassador of Earth, representing 4 billion humans who seek to join your alliance of worlds. He activated his first data tablet, and holographic images appeared above his head. Pictures of Earth showed blue oceans, green forests, and great cities where humans lived in peace. For the first time in our history, Earth has achieved planetary unity. We have ended all major wars between nations. We have created a single world government that represents all peoples fairly. Dr. Park stepped forward and activated another tablet. New images showed human technology, ships that could travel between stars, medical devices that could cure diseases, and computers that could think almost like living beings. Our technology has advanced rapidly in the past century. We have learned to harness the power of the atom, explore the depths of space, and communicate across vast distances instantly. Minute-Ho continued his presentation with passion in his voice. We do not come seeking handouts or special treatment. We come offering our knowledge, our resources, and our friendship. Humanity has always been at its best when working together with others who share our values of peace and progress. But even as he spoke, Minute-Ho could see the alien faces around him growing cold and dismissive. The Zephyrians barely moved in their crystal chairs. The HFY made soft clicking sounds that seemed mocking rather than interested. The Luxari pulsed with what looked like boredom. When Minute-Ho finished his presentation, the chamber fell silent for several long minutes. Finally, the chief Zephyrian representative stood up. The creature was tall and thin, with skin that looked like polished glass. When it spoke, its voice echoed through the chamber like wind chimes in a storm. Ambassador of Earth, the Zephyrian said, your presentation has been noted and considered. However, the Council has reached a unanimous decision regarding humanity's application for membership. Minute-Ho felt his stomach tighten. The tone in the alien's voice did not sound promising. Humanity is too volatile for membership in this council, the Zephyrian continued. Your species is too young, too primitive, and too unpredictable. You have barely emerged from your tribal warfare phase. You have not proven that you can maintain peace even among your own kind for more than a few decades. The HFY representative dropped from the ceiling on silk-like threads. Its multiple eyes focused on Minute-Ho as it spoke in a voice like grinding metal. Your barbaric history of warfare makes you dangerous to galactic stability. We have observed human behavior for centuries. You are aggressive, territorial, and prone to violence when faced with challenges. The Luxari energy beings pulsed brighter, and their collective voice filled the chamber like the sound of distant thunder. The Council maintains order through careful balance. Introducing an unstable element like humanity would threaten the peace we have maintained for thousands of years. Minute-Ho felt his jaw muscles tighten, but he kept his voice calm and respectful. Honored council members, I understand your concerns. But every species has a violent past. What matters is how we have grown beyond that past. Humanity has learned from its mistakes and chosen a better path. The Zephyrian raised one crystalline hand, cutting off Minute-Ho's words. The decision is final. Humanity is denied membership in the Galactic Council. Furthermore, you are denied observer status. You may return to make another application in 1,000 Earth years, if your species manages to survive its own destructive nature. The dismissal was complete and humiliating. Minute-Ho had expected some resistance, but he had never imagined such total rejection. As he and Dr. Park gathered their materials and prepared to leave, he could hear the alien representatives already moving on to other business, as if humanity had never existed at all. The walk back to their small transport ship felt endless. Minute-Ho's mind raced with questions and anger. How could they judge humanity so harshly? What gave these aliens the right to decide who was worthy of joining their club? Communications Officer Sujin was waiting for them in the ship's control room. Her face was pale and her hands were shaking as she worked at her console. "Sir," she said without looking up, "I've been monitoring council communications since you left for the presentation. You need to hear this." She played back encrypted transmissions that she had somehow managed to decode. The voices belonged to the same council members who had just rejected humanity's application, but now they spoke with cold calculation rather than diplomatic politeness. "The humans advanced too quickly," the Zephyrian voice said. "Their technology grows at an alarming rate. If we allow them into the council, they could upset the balance of power within decades." "Agreed," replied the HFY. "We must contain them before they become a threat. Economic isolation should slow their progress. And if that fails, there are other methods." "The Luxari recommends subtle technological sabotage," came the energy being's response. "Nothing that could be traced back to us, but enough to keep them from reaching our level of advancement." Sujin stopped the recording and turned to face Minute-Ho and Dr. Park. "Sir, they're not just dismissing us because they think we're primitive. They're afraid of us. They're planning to actively prevent our development." Dr. Park leaned back in his seat, and for the first time since the rejection, he smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Then they've made a serious mistake," he said quietly. "They clearly don't understand what happens when you back humanity into a corner." Minute-Ho looked out the ship's window at the massive council station growing smaller as they departed. The aliens thought they had ended humanity's galactic ambitions. Instead, they had just declared war on the most adaptable and determined species in the galaxy. "Set course for Earth," Minute-Ho ordered. "We have work to do." 5 years had passed since the humiliating rejection at the Galactic Council station. To any outside observer watching Earth, it appeared that humanity had given up their dreams of joining the galactic community. Ships rarely left Earth's solar system. Trade with other worlds had stopped completely. The planet seemed to have turned inward, focusing only on its own problems. But appearances could be very deceiving. Deep beneath the mountains of Colorado, Dr. Hawan carefully examined a sample of Zephyrian crystal under her microscope. The underground laboratory complex stretched for miles in every direction, hidden from any scanning technology the Council might use to spy on Earth. Hundreds of scientists worked in these secret facilities, studying every piece of alien technology they had managed to acquire during their brief contact with the Council. General Daeun walked beside Dr. Hawan as she moved from one research station to another. The general's uniform bore no insignia that would identify her rank or purpose. Security in the underground facility was absolute. "What have you discovered about their biological structure?" the general asked. Dr. Hawan stopped at a workstation covered with holographic displays showing alien DNA patterns. "Something fascinating," she replied, adjusting the microscope's focus. "Each council species has evolved to become perfect specialists. The Zephyrians process information at incredible speeds, but only certain types of data. The HFY can coordinate complex group activities, but they struggle with individual creativity. The Luxari can manipulate energy in ways we barely understand, but they cannot work with solid matter at all." She gestured to a chart showing human genetic patterns alongside the alien samples. "But humans are different. We are generalists. Our brains can adapt to almost any challenge. We can learn to think like Zephyrians when we need to process data, coordinate like HFY when we need teamwork, and innovate in ways that none of them can imagine." General Daeun nodded thoughtfully. "And what does this mean for our technology development?" "It means we can do something they never expected," Dr. Hawan said with excitement in her voice. "We can combine their technologies. Take Zephyrian communication systems, add HFY coordination protocols, power it with Luxari energy manipulation techniques, and create something completely new. Something better than any of them could build alone." Far above the underground laboratories, Admiral Minute-Jun stood on the observation deck of Earth's largest shipyard. To anyone watching from space, the facility looked like it was building simple cargo ships and basic exploration vessels. The ships had rounded hulls and visible engine ports that looked crude compared to the sleek alien designs they had seen at the Council station. But Admiral Minute-Jun knew the truth. Inside those humble-looking hulls were technological marvels that combined the best innovations from multiple alien species. The ships could travel faster than HFY vessels, communicate more efficiently than Zephyrian networks, and generate more power than Luxari energy systems. Captain Yojin approached the Admiral with a data tablet in her hands. "Sir, the weekly intelligence briefing is ready. Should we move to the secure conference room?" Admiral Minutjun nodded and followed the captain to a windowless room deep inside the shipyard's administrative building. The walls were lined with screens showing information gathered from across the galaxy. Other officers were already seated around the oval table, each representing a different aspect of Earth's secret operations. Captain Yojin activated the main display screen. "Our intelligence networks have confirmed the basic structure of Council power," she began. "The Zephyrians control all major communication networks across the galaxy. Every message, every data transfer, every piece of information flows through systems they own and monitor." The screen showed a map of the galaxy with glowing lines connecting different star systems. The HFY manage all approved trade routes. They decide which worlds can trade with each other and what goods can be exchanged. Any species that wants to engage in interstellar commerce must go through HFY-controlled channels. New images appeared showing massive energy stations orbiting various stars. The Luxari oversee energy distribution throughout Council space. They control the power systems that keep entire civilizations running. Without their approval, a world's technology simply stops working. Intelligence Officer Sung-ho stood up and pointed to sections of the galaxy map that remained dark and unconnected. "But here's what we've discovered that the Council doesn't want anyone to know. There are dozens of intelligent species that have been denied membership and representation. They exist on the edges of Council space, cut off from the networks of communication, trade, and energy that make advanced civilization possible." The screen focused on specific star systems, showing detailed information about the excluded species. The aquatic Murthal live on ocean worlds throughout the spiral arm. They've developed remarkable biotechnology, but the Council considers them primitive because they don't use metals or crystals in their construction. Images of gas clouds filled with strange, glowing shapes appeared next. The veil dancers exist as gaseous beings in nebulae across the galaxy. They've created art and philosophy that surpasses anything in Council space, but they're ignored because they don't build physical structures. Finally, the screen showed small, fast ships moving between distant star systems. The Wanderer tribes are nomadic peoples who travel constantly through unexplored regions. They know more about the galaxy's hidden secrets than any other species, but the Council sees them as homeless vagrants with nothing to offer. Intelligence Officer Sung-ho returned to his seat. "All of these species have tried to join the Council at various times over the past 1,000 years. All have been rejected for being different, primitive, or unsuitable. The Council's peaceful order is actually a rigid caste system that keeps anyone new from gaining power or influence." President So-young had been listening quietly throughout the briefing. Now she leaned forward, her expression serious and determined. "So the Council maintains control by keeping potential rivals isolated and powerless. They've created artificial scarcity by preventing other species from accessing advanced technology or forming alliances." Admiral Minutjun nodded. "Our analysis suggests that many of these excluded species have capabilities that could challenge Council dominance if they were properly organized and equipped." President So-young stood up and walked to the galaxy map. She pointed to the dark regions where the excluded species lived. "Then we have our strategy. We don't challenge the Council directly. Instead, we give these forgotten species what the Council has denied them: access to advanced technology, communication networks, and most importantly, hope." Captain Yojin looked puzzled. "But how do we do that without revealing our involvement? If the Council discovers that Earth is behind any uprising, they'll move to destroy us immediately." Dr. Howon's voice came through the intercom system from her underground laboratory. "We use our greatest advantage, our ability to adapt and innovate. We create technologies that are clearly superior to Council systems, but we make them look like they came from the excluded species themselves. Natural evolution rather than outside interference." President So-young smiled for the first time in years. "We're going to do something the Council never expected. We're going to make their worst nightmare come true. We're going to level the playing field." Intelligence Officer Sung-ho activated new sections of the galaxy map. "I've already identified the first targets. Species that have the motivation to resist Council control and the basic infrastructure to use advanced technology effectively." "Then let's begin," President So-young declared. "The Council wanted us to disappear quietly into isolation. Instead, we're going to bring their entire system crashing down. And they'll never see it coming. The revolution began quietly, with small packages delivered to forgotten corners of the galaxy. No armies marched across star systems. No fleets engaged in massive battles. Instead, humanity started their war with gifts. On the ocean world of Aquatica, a Murthal engineer named Coral Singer received a mysterious package floating in the deep currents near her underwater city. Inside was a device unlike anything she had ever seen. It looked organic, with smooth curves that reminded her of seashells, but when she activated it, power flowed through her city's bionetworks like nothing the Luxari had ever provided. Coral Singer called her research team together in the ancient meeting chamber carved from living coral. "Look at these energy readings," she said, her gills fluttering with excitement. "This device produces 3 times more power than the best Luxari energy cells, but it uses principles we can understand and replicate." The other engineers gathered around the fusion reactor, their tentacles exploring its surface with gentle touches. "Where did it come from?" asked Deep Current, the eldest of their group. "The package had no identification," Coral Singer replied. "But whoever designed this understands both our biology and our technology. See how it interfaces perfectly with our biocircuits? This wasn't built by the Council species." Within weeks, Murthal cities across Aquatica were glowing brighter than they had in centuries. Their bioships could travel farther and faster than ever before. For the first time in generations, they had energy independence from the Luxari power networks. Similar scenes played out in the gas clouds of the Spiral Nebula. The Veil Dancers, beings of pure thought and energy who had been ignored by the Council for millennia, received communication devices that let them speak directly to each other across vast distances without using Zephyrian networks. Wind Through Stars, a Veil Dancer philosopher, tested the new communication array from within the purple cloud cluster. The device was beautiful in its simplicity, crystalline structures that resonated with their energy patterns, allowing thoughts to travel instantly between distant nebulae. Sisters and brothers, Wind Through Stars broadcast to Veil Dancer communities throughout the galaxy, we are no longer dependent on Council communication systems. We can share our wisdom freely, without censorship or monitoring. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Veil Dancers who had been isolated for decades suddenly found themselves connected to a vast network of knowledge and creativity. Their philosophical insights, artistic creations, and scientific discoveries began flowing freely between communities that had been cut off from each other for generations. Back on Earth, engineer Byung-ho monitored the distribution networks from a secret facility hidden beneath Seoul's industrial district. Holographic displays showed sales figures and usage reports from across the galaxy. His team had been working for 3 years to establish these underground supply chains. "The beautiful part," Byung-ho said to his assistant while reviewing the latest data, "is that Earth officially doesn't exist in their economic records. As far as the Council knows, these technologies are just appearing naturally among the excluded species." His assistant, Dr. Minute Seo, pointed to a section of the data that showed rapid adoption rates. "The Murthal have already begun manufacturing their own versions of our fusion reactors. They're improving on our designs using their bioengineering techniques." Byung-ho smiled with satisfaction. "Exactly what we hoped for. We give them the basic concepts, and they adapt them to fit their own needs and capabilities. Soon they'll have technology that's clearly superior to anything the Council provides, but it will look like their own natural development." The deception was working perfectly. When Council investigators finally arrived at Earth to check on humanity's progress, they found exactly what they expected to see. Ambassador Taehyung welcomed them at the main spaceport with demonstrations of Earth's current technology level. "As you can see," Taehyung said, gesturing to a primitive rocket launching from a nearby pad, "we continue to struggle with basic space travel. Our fastest ships can barely reach the outer planets of our own solar system." The lead investigator, a Zephyrian named Crystal Voice, observed the chemical rocket with obvious disdain. "Your species has made little progress since our last evaluation. Perhaps the Council was wise to reject your membership application." Taehyung nodded humbly. "We understand the Council's concerns. Humanity clearly has much to learn before we can contribute meaningfully to galactic civilization." The investigators toured Earth's surface facilities, seeing only the primitive technologies that humanity wanted them to see. Underground production facilities remained completely hidden. Advanced ships were kept in deep space, far from any scanning range. The Council delegation left satisfied that humanity remained safely backward and posed no threat to galactic stability. But across the galaxy, the effects of human intervention were becoming impossible to ignore. The first major test came on the mining world of Kepler 442b, where the native Sylvani had been enslaved by Council forces for over 3 centuries. Admiral Subin commanded the operation from her stealth ship, hidden in an asteroid field at the edge of the star system. Her vessel looked like a large asteroid from the outside, but inside it contained some of the most advanced technology humanity had ever produced. Status report, she requested from Captain Jongsu, who was coordinating the ground assault. Phase 1 complete, Jongsu replied through their encrypted communication system. We've distributed weapons and tactical equipment to the Sylvani resistance leaders. The devices are designed to look like they were built from salvaged Council technology. Subin watched the tactical display as dozens of small groups of Sylvani fighters launched coordinated attacks against their Council oppressors. The rebels moved with precision that would have been impossible without advanced communication gear and strategic planning software. But to outside observers, it would appear to be a spontaneous uprising using captured weapons. Phase 2 initiating, Jongsu continued. Sylvani forces are targeting the main garrison and spaceport simultaneously. Council defenders are completely unprepared for this level of coordination. The battle lasted only 6 hours. Council forces, accustomed to controlling primitive populations through superior technology and overwhelming firepower, found themselves facing opponents who seemed to anticipate their every move. Sylvani fighters used tactics that neutralized Council advantages and exploited weaknesses that should have been unknown to them. Liberation successful, Jongsu reported as the last Council ship fled the system. Sylvani leaders are broadcasting their independence declaration across local communication networks. They're claiming credit for developing all the technology they used in the fight. Admiral Subin smiled as she watched the celebration beginning on the planet's surface. Excellent work. The Council will investigate this as a native uprising using stolen technology. They have no idea we planned and coordinated the entire operation. But even as humanity celebrated this first victory, warning signs were appearing in Council intelligence reports. Military analysts noted the unusually sophisticated tactics used by the Sylvani rebels. The coordination between different resistance groups suggested outside training or support. Most troubling of all, the weapons and equipment used in the uprising showed design principles that didn't match any known Council technology. Deep in the Council's military headquarters, War Coordinator Sharpblade reviewed the battle reports with growing concern. The HFY military leaders' compound eyes focused intently on tactical recordings from the Sylvani liberation. This level of strategic coordination is impossible for a primitive species, Sharpblade declared to his staff. Someone is training these rebels. Someone with advanced military knowledge and sophisticated technology. The investigation was about to begin, and humanity's secret war was about to face its first serious challenge. The emergency alarm echoed through the crystal halls of the Galactic Council station for the first time in over 200 years. 12 species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years now gathered in crisis session, their confidence shaken by events they could no longer ignore or explain. Supreme Arbiter Claythorpe stood at the center of the Council chamber, his crystalline form reflecting the nervous energy that filled the room. Around him, representatives from the other 11 Council species shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The holographic displays surrounding them showed a galaxy in chaos. 15 major uprisings in 2 months, Claythorpe announced, his voice cutting through the chamber like breaking glass. Species that have been peaceful for centuries are suddenly launching coordinated rebellions against our authority. This cannot be coincidence. The massive HFY hive queen dropped from her ceiling perch, her compound eyes glittering with suspicion as she landed on the Council floor. Her 6 legs clicked against the crystal surface as she spoke. Our military scouts have detected unknown ship signatures at several conflict zones. The vessels use primitive designs, but their performance capabilities exceed our own ships in many areas. Energy patterns swirled as the Luxari collective formed their response. These rebellions show tactical knowledge that these species should not possess. Someone is providing training, equipment, and strategic planning to our enemies. Claythorpe activated the central display, showing intelligence reports from across the galaxy. The pattern is clear. Excluded species are acquiring advanced technology through unknown sources. Their weapons and communication systems bypass our control networks entirely. War Coordinator Sharpblade, the HFY military leader, pointed to specific battle recordings with one of his razor-sharp limbs. Look at these tactical formations. The rebels move with precision that suggests extensive military training. They anticipate our strategies and counter them before we can implement them. The evidence was overwhelming, but the source remained mysterious. Every investigation led to dead ends. The technology appeared to develop naturally within each rebel species, but the similarities between different uprisings suggested a common origin. "We must act decisively," Claythorpe declared. "Intelligence indicates that the largest rebellion is forming on Nexus 7. If we crush this uprising with overwhelming force, it will send a message to other potential rebels." The Council voted unanimously to deploy their combined fleets to Nexus 7. It would be the largest military operation in over 500 years, designed to end the rebellion crisis once and for all. Admiral Kyung Minute stood on the bridge of his flagship as the human fleet prepared to reveal itself. Through the viewscreen, he could see the Council's massive armada approaching Nexus 7, confident in their superior numbers and technology. They had no idea that Earth's forces had been waiting for this moment for 5 years. "All ships report ready," announced Captain Hyjin from the tactical station. "Stealth systems are disengaging in 30 seconds. The woman standing beside Admiral Kyung Minute had changed dramatically since her days as a communications officer. Sujin now served as Earth's senior diplomatic representative, but her role today would be very different from traditional diplomacy. "Open channels to all Council frequencies," Sujin ordered. "It's time they learned the truth." Space around Nexus 7 suddenly filled with ships that seemed to appear from nowhere. Hundreds of sleek human vessels emerged from hyperspace, their hulls gleaming with advanced armor that shifted and adapted to scanning attempts. The Council fleet found themselves surrounded by a force they had never seen before. Sujin's transmission cut across every communication channel in the system. Her voice reached every ship, every planet, and every listening post within a dozen star systems. "Members of the Galactic Council," she began, her tone calm but carrying absolute confidence, "you denied humanity a seat at your table 5 years ago. You called us too primitive, too volatile, too dangerous for your civilized society. Today, you learn the consequences of that decision." Admiral Kyung Minute watched the Council fleet's reaction on his tactical displays. Ships that had been moving in confident attack formations suddenly stopped, their commanders struggling to understand what they were facing. "You rejected us," Sujin continued, "but we did not simply disappear. Instead, we spent 5 years learning about your true nature. We discovered that your peaceful order is built on systematic oppression." The broadcast included recorded evidence that humanity had gathered over years of careful investigation. Video recordings showed Council forces enslaving entire populations. Financial records revealed how the Council maintained artificial scarcity to keep other species dependent. Communications intercepts proved that technological progress was deliberately suppressed to maintain Council dominance. "For centuries, you have denied membership to dozens of intelligent species," Sujin's voice carried across the galaxy. "You claimed they were primitive or unsuitable, but the truth is that you feared competition. You built your power by keeping others weak and divided." Claythorpe's emergency transmission reached the Council fleet commanders. "This is impossible. Humans lack the capability to build such vessels or coordinate such operations." Admiral Kyung Minute activated his own communication channel, addressing the Council directly for the first time. "You underestimated us from the beginning. You saw our history of conflict and assumed we could never change. You called us too primitive to join your club. Now let's see how your ancient technologies fare against human ingenuity." The Kethai fleet responded first, their bioships swarming toward the human formation like angry insects. War Coordinator Sharpblade had commanded these vessels for decades, confident in their proven superiority over any opposition they had ever faced. But what they encountered defied every tactical doctrine in their military database. Human ships moved with coordination that seemed impossible, as if they shared a single mind. When Kethai weapons struck human shields, the energy barriers analyzed the attack patterns and adapted their frequencies to provide better protection. Human weapons seemed to learn from each exchange, becoming more effective with every shot fired. Captain Yoon Seo reported from her destroyer as she engaged a Kethai battle cruiser. "Enemy weapons are having minimal effect on our adaptive shielding. Our return fire is penetrating their defenses with increasing efficiency." Across the battlefield, similar reports came from human ship commanders. Their vessels were not just fighting the Council fleet, they were learning from it, adapting to it, and overcoming it with frightening speed. The tide of battle turned within the first hour. Council ships that had seemed invincible for centuries found themselves outmaneuvered by opponents who anticipated their every move. Human tactical systems processed battlefield data faster than Zephyrian computers. Human coordination protocols outperformed Kethai hivemind communication. Human energy management surpassed even Luxari capabilities. But the most shocking moment came when individual Council ships began powering down their weapons and broadcasting surrender requests. The crew of a Zephyrian cruiser was the first to make contact with the human fleet. "This is Crystal Song of the exploration vessel Harmony of Thought," came the transmission. "We request permission to join your fleet. We no longer wish to serve a council that maintains power through oppression and fear." Within hours, dozens of council ships had switched sides. Their crews, seeing the evidence of council crimes and witnessing humanity's superior capabilities, chose to abandon their old allegiances. Admiral Kyung-minute watched as the mighty council fleet dissolved before his eyes. The 12 species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were learning that their time of absolute power was ending. The revolution had begun not with humanity's victory over the council, but with the council's defeat of itself. The battle at Nexus 7 ended not with explosions or surrender ceremonies, but with something far more powerful: understanding. As the last council ships powered down their weapons and joined the human fleet, a new reality began to take shape across the galaxy. Captain Nai stood on the bridge of her vessel, looking out at the mixed fleet of human and former council ships floating peacefully in space. Her crystalline skin reflected the light from nearby stars as she spoke to her crew. "I have commanded the battleship Crystal Harmony for 30 years, she said, her voice carrying the weight of deep realization. "I believe that Zephyrian superiority in communication technology made us naturally better leaders than other species." Her crew listened in silence as their captain continued. "But these humans have shown us something we never understood. We spent thousands of years believing that our individual superiority made us strong. They have proven that cooperation makes everyone stronger." Similar conversations were happening on ships throughout the fleet. Kethai military officers discovered that human tactical systems worked better when they incorporated insect-like coordination patterns. Luxari energy beings found that their power manipulation abilities were enhanced when combined with human engineering principles. For the first time in galactic history, different species were learning from each other as equals rather than as rulers and subjects. The transformation spread beyond the military forces. On worlds across the galaxy, the rigid council system began to collapse. Species that had been denied representation for centuries suddenly found themselves free to communicate, trade, and share knowledge without council approval. Dr. Hawan worked tirelessly in the months following the battle, traveling between star systems to establish what would become known as the Terran Accords. Her small research team had grown into a massive organization that included scientists from dozens of species. On the ocean world of Aquatica, she met with Merthal bioengineers who had improved upon human fusion reactor designs. "Your technology gave us the foundation," explained Coral Singer, the lead Merthal researcher. "But when we combined it with our bioengineering techniques, we created something neither of us could have achieved alone." Dr. Hawan smiled as she examined the hybrid reactor that powered the underwater city around them. The device looked like a living organism, but it generated more energy than any purely mechanical system. "This is exactly what we hoped for," she said. "Technology that grows and adapts rather than remaining static." Similar innovations were appearing everywhere humans had made contact with excluded species. The Veil Dancers had created communication networks that could transmit not just words and data, but emotions and artistic concepts. The Wanderer tribes had developed navigation systems that could map previously unknown regions of space in real time. The old council chamber had been transformed beyond recognition. Where once 12 species had sat in isolation, making decisions for the entire galaxy, now hundreds of representatives gathered to discuss issues that affected their worlds. The crystalline walls had been modified to accommodate beings of all sizes and environmental needs. Sections filled with water allowed aquatic species to participate. Energy fields contained gaseous beings like the Veil Dancers. Climate controls created comfortable zones for species from ice worlds and desert planets. President So-young, now in her 70s but still mentally sharp, stood at the center of the Great Chamber to address the first session of the new Galactic Assembly. Her hair had turned silver, and lines of experience marked her face, but her voice carried clearly to every corner of the vast space. "When humanity first came to the Old Council, we sought acceptance," she began, her words translated into hundreds of languages and communication methods. "We wanted to join your civilization, to contribute our knowledge and learn from your wisdom. You denied us that acceptance, believing we were too young, too primitive, too dangerous." She paused, looking around the chamber at the incredible diversity of beings now gathered as equals. "You were wrong about the first 2 accusations, but perhaps you were right about the third. We were dangerous, but not in the way you imagined." Delegates from dozens of worlds leaned forward to hear her words. Merthal representatives floated in their water-filled observation tanks. Kethai diplomats hung from specially designed perches. Luxury energy beings pulsed with interested light patterns. We were dangerous to your system of oppression, President So-young continued, her voice growing stronger. We were dangerous to your artificial hierarchies that kept some species in power while others suffered in silence. We were dangerous to your belief that some beings deserve more rights and opportunities than others simply because of their biological origins. She gestured toward the gallery where former council members sat alongside species that had been excluded for centuries. Most importantly, we were dangerous to the idea that strength comes from keeping others weak and divided. The chamber erupted in sounds of approval, cheers from humanoid species, harmonic vibrations from crystalline beings, bioluminescent displays from aquatic representatives. For the first time in galactic history, hundreds of different species were celebrating together as equals. Admiral Kyung Minute watched the ceremony from the observation deck, accompanied by his daughter Minute Ji, who had served as a fighter pilot during the liberation campaigns. The young woman had grown up during the years of secret preparation and hidden war against the council system. Do you remember what you told me after the battle at Nexus 7? Admiral Kyung Minute asked his daughter. Minute Ji smiled, recalling the moment when the last council ships had joined their fleet. I said that they denied us a seat at their table, so we built a bigger table where everyone belongs. Her father nodded thoughtfully. That may be the most important strategic decision humanity ever made. We could have simply replaced the council with human dominance. Instead, we chose to create something completely new. The new system worked differently than anything the galaxy had seen before. Instead of a rigid hierarchy with fixed membership, the Galactic Assembly operated on principles of contribution and cooperation. Species earned representation by sharing knowledge, helping other worlds, and contributing to the common good. Technology flowed freely between civilizations, leading to innovations that benefited everyone. The Murthal shared their bioengineering techniques, allowing other species to create living buildings and self-repairing equipment. The Veiled Dancers taught meditation and philosophical concepts that helped different species understand each other better. The Wanderer tribes provided exploration data that opened new regions of space for peaceful settlement. Most importantly, the artificial scarcity that had characterized council rule was replaced by abundance. When knowledge was shared freely and species worked together rather than competing for limited resources, everyone prospered. President So-young concluded her address with words that would be remembered across the galaxy for generations to come. The old council ruled through fear and scarcity, maintaining power by keeping others weak and dependent. We choose to govern through hope and abundance, believing that when we lift others up, we all rise together. As delegates filed out of the chamber to begin their work, Admiral Kyung Minute reflected on the long journey from that humiliating rejection 5 years earlier. The greatest victory had not been the military defeat of the council fleet, but the transformation of galactic civilization itself. Humanity had discovered that the best revenge against those who wronged them was not destruction or domination. It was becoming everything their oppressors could never be: generous instead of selfish, inclusive instead of exclusive, cooperative instead of competitive. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what humanity had hoped for from the beginning.